That harmony I observed in 1967 continued, of course, after beloved Baba had dropped the body, and this is what I wrote about them in 1981. When all the Maharaja families speak their minds freely and strongly, how do they reach a decision? I observed that they do not quarrel amongst themselves about the pros and cons of this versus that they do speak their minds openly, and that finally they accept happily the decision that is often reached through the words of one or other of them. Their whole life, down to the most minute and mundane aspect, is based upon the fervent wish that their wish prevail. That his wish prevail, So it makes the resolution of any discussion easy because no one has anything to gain for themselves. That one who is best equipped to place the best perspective on the issue at hand in the light of beloved Baba's cause becomes the resolver. If one wishes, one can use the term leader, but this seems irrelevant when one observes the process at work. Further thoughts come to me in thinking about harmony. All conflict has its basis in self-interest, and the resolution of conflict has its basis in diminution of self-interest from greater and greater remembrance of him. I am also reminded of the words at the top of Adi Senior's letters, give up and give in. All this reminds me of a story from the Buddha's Advent, one that Eric particularly liked. A young man of the Brethren in a certain place was expelled because of an alleged indiscretion. But half the Brethren disagreed with this decision, and a disruptive dispute arose between the two parties, with each reviling and slandering each other. This was reported to the Buddha, and although he counselled each party, they continued to quarrel and began to worship separately. When this was reported to the Buddha, he said, loud is the voice which worldlings make. But how can they be blamed when divisions arise also in the Sangha? That's the brotherhood, the brethren. Hatred is not appeased in those who think, he has reviled me, he has wronged me, he has injured me. Hatred is not appeased by hatred. Hatred is appeased by not hatred. This is the eternal law. When the dispute continued despite his words, Buddha thought to himself, it's no easy task to instruct these headstrong and infatuated fools. And he rose from his seat and went away. In the absence of the Buddha, the quarrels became worse, and the lay devotees then became disgusted with these particular brethren and ceased honouring and supporting them. With this serious development, the brethren repented and decided to go in one body to the Buddha and seek settlement of their dispute. The Buddha said, concord must be re-established both in the spirit and in the letter. And he then told the story of Prince Digamvar, the long-lived. The king and queen of a small kingdom fled after the invasion of the much stronger neighbouring kingdom in order to avoid unnecessary hardship for their people. They settled in a small village as potters, and a son, Digamvar, was born to them, and under their guidance he grew up strong, wise, educated and accomplished. but their existence, and particularly of the son, was betrayed to the victorious king, and he, knowing the son could surely seek to kill him, sought their capture and execution. The son happened to be away, but the parents were seized and taken for execution. As they were led to the place of execution, the father saw his son amidst the crowd and called out, "O son, be not far-sighted, be not near-sighted, for not by hatred is hatred appeased. Hatred is appeased by not hatred only." After the execution, the son drugged the guards with strong wine, and in the night laid his parents on the funeral pyre and burnt them with all honour and religious rites. When the victorious king heard this, and thus knowing the son was alive, became afraid that Digamvar would seek to assassinate him. Digamvar then obtained employment in the stables of the palace, and one night the king heard a most beautiful lute and voice singing. He sought the identity of the singer, and seeing the fine young man, brought him into the palace itself. Gradually the young man became more and more trusted by the king, until he was a constant companion to the king. One day they went hunting, and in time separated from his retinue, the king lay down to rest with his head on the lap of Digamvar. He slept, and the young man saw his opportunity to avenge the death of his parents, and unsheathed his sword. Then he remembered his father's words and sheathed the sword. At this point the king awakened and said he had had again a recurring dream of being killed by the son. Digamvar said, "Yes, he is that son," and now the chance for revenge had come. The king pleaded for his life, but Digamvar replied without bitterness or ill will that he cannot grant the king life, since his life is endangered by the king, and he pleaded in turn for the king to grant him his life. The king agreed that with Digamvar granting life to him, he granted the same to Digamvar, and they took each other's hand and swore an oath to do no harm to each other. Then the king asked of Digamvar the meaning of his father's words on the way to the execution, and he said that his father counselled, "Do not let your hatred go far, and do not be hasty to fall out with your friends. For hatred is not appeased by hatred, but by not hatred." He meant if Digamvar took the king's life, the king's followers would take his, and then Digamvar's followers would kill them, and so on. Thus hatred would not be appeased. The king was impressed again with the young man's wisdom and maturity, and he gave back the kingdom he had taken and gave his daughter in marriage to Digamvar. After hearing this counselling from the Buddha, the brethren then discussed their differences in mutual goodwill, and the concord of the Sangha was re-established. Jai Baba.